The US President, Joe Biden, he arrived a short while back in New Delhi. His plane Air Force One landed at the Palam Air Force Station. There was a bit of rain in the air, but the president seemed to be in high spirits. He was treated to a traditional Indian dance on the runway. It's been a highlight of India's G20 welcome. Now, with the niceties done, it was time for the main event. Biden headed to Prime Minister Modi's residence. That's where the bilateral meeting is happening. At the Prime Minister's residence, he welcomed Joe Biden to his home. They exchanged some pleasantries, shared a few laughs, and then it was down to business. Later tonight, Prime Minister Modi will also be hosting a private dinner for Joe Biden. Now, this is Biden's first visit to India as the US president. He took charge in January 2021. It's taken him more than 2 years to visit India, but this delay has not affected the relationship. Many would argue that this is the highest point in India-US relations, the highest ever. I will say one thing though, it's pretty late for a bilateral meeting. I guess there's a lot to discuss. Biden and Modi last met in June. The Prime Minister was in Washington for a state visit. He and President Biden announced multiple deals for jet engines, for Predator drones, and for 5G technology. So tonight, it's all about taking stock, seeing how much progress has been made since June. A couple of issues are also on the agenda, like civil nuclear cooperation. India's nuclear power program is not making much progress. The last decade was a missed opportunity. But now with climate change, nuclear power is all the more important. Countries are shifting from fossil fuels to nuclear energy. And many of them see nuclear power as a good alternative. So what's the plan here? Well, the US and India already have a nuclear deal. The idea is to rejuvenate it. Talks are underway to build 6 reactors in India. Biden and Modi could fast-track it. They could clear all the domestic hurdles. Also on the agenda will be Ukraine, China, and the Indo-Pacific. India and the US largely agree on the last 2 issues, China and the Indo-Pacific, but Ukraine will be a tough nut to crack. Washington is the biggest supporter of Kiev. New Delhi, meanwhile, has not criticized Russia's invasion, and this will be a showdown tomorrow. The Western countries want tougher language against Russia, but Moscow says no way. They have threatened to block the joint statement if it is anti-Russia. And stuck in between is India. It is always the host's job to build consensus, and that's where today's meeting between Modi and Biden could be important. The US can influence Western policy. Biden can convince Europe to accept India's joint statement or at least make some concessions. Maybe that explains this late-night bilateral meeting. Biden's national security advisor did promise to play a positive role. Listen to what he said, and I'm quoting, "Our coordinators have been working all day and all night the last few days on the joint statement. We bring a spirit of compromise to a lot of the different issues that are contentious so that we can find a text that everybody can live with." So that is the US position. America's Treasury Secretary was also positive. That's Janet Yellen. She's also in New Delhi right now. Yellen has laid out multiple priorities, like expanding the funds available to the World Bank, tackling climate change, the debt relief for the Global South. She also praised India's G20 presidency in a divided world, and she promised full support to drafting a joint statement. Listen in.
I understand that this is challenging to craft such language, but I know the negotiators are discussing it and working hard to do so, and we stand ready certainly to work with India to try to craft a communique that successfully addresses this concern.
The US too has something to gain. There was a very important BRICS summit last month. The group added 6 new members. It's no secret that China wants to turn BRICS into an anti-US bloc. Now, Biden will try to prevent that, and for that, he needs Prime Minister Modi's support. So a lot hinges on the meeting that is happening right now between Modi and Biden, and on the consensus that Modi and Biden can build. Remember, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are not attending. So there is added pressure on Modi and Biden. They are leaders of the 2 largest democracies in the world, also 2 of the biggest economies in the world. So the decisions being made now could determine the G20 outcome tomorrow.